Hello, welcome to When the Smoke Clears. I am the recovery plug. What's happening, everybody? I hope you're doing good today. I know that I'm doing great. Day's great. It's a little cloudy out here where I live, but I mean, otherwise, it's a great day, right? Yeah, so I'd like to get this video podcast on the road, man, and let's move it on. So, you know how I always like to get my video podcast started, always with a moment of silence, followed by the serenity prayer for the addict who still suffers and for those of us who are still in the struggle. So, if you would please, a moment of silence. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, wisdom to know the difference. All right, well, let's get started. Man, so how's it going? It's going great. So, today I wanted to talk to you guys about the subject I'm going to pick for today's topic and what we're going to be talking about. I'm going to do a little reading and then kind of elaborate on, how that reading, reflect how I intertwine that with my personal recovery journey and that sort of thing in my personal life, right? So maybe some of these things can, there in turn help you in your journey of recovery and positivity and spirituality. So, so thank you for joining this morning or today, this afternoon. I guess without any further ado, the topic of today is going to be being teachable. And, being teachable is, to me, something that is a duty for us as human beings that we have to constantly be doing. You know what I mean? I think that we have to constantly be teachable in some level to progress in life, to progress in whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's work, whether it's relationship, whether it's just living. You know what I mean? And you can go a little deeper into that, and it could be, for a mental process, for your spirituality. You know what I mean? It can go that deep, and being teachable, I believe, is something that we probably don't even know that we're doing it, or that or that our mindset is just kind of mechanically molded that way, if you will, and because we live in a life of seasons, right? We live in a life of things that come and things that go, and every day you're leaving things behind. Things die every single day. Things are non-existent every single day, and then you got these new things, these reborn things, these things that are in the new. You know what I mean? So living in the here and now is just so much about being teachable, because everything you do is you're just going from one thing to the next. You know what I mean? And it's almost like, whatever I did yesterday doesn't exist anymore. You know what I mean? So now I got to be teachable for today. And how you live your life like that, it really broadens the mind. To me, it does anyway, because it can broaden, and it also can just narrow it down. You know what I mean? It could be this tunnel of the light that just keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller. If you're one of these people who, like I was at one point in time in my life, just this person that was just in this whole negative realm and in this darkness, that nothing was, it was just this black little dot that I was in, you know what I mean? And I couldn't get out of it. You know what I mean? And that for me was living in the world of addiction. And, it took a lot for me to broaden my teachable mindset, if you will. And what I want to do is I pulled up a couple of things that I wanted to read to you, a couple of things that I found intriguing and that I found helpful. And I'm going to read a few of these things. Let's see here. Okay. This thing here is something that I saw on the BRC recovery page, and there's something that they got written out here. It says, "How to be teachable. You are often indicates your happiness. How teachable you are often indicates your happiness and success in life. To feel truly happy and fulfilled in life, you have to continually take stock of yourself and keep growing. So it's important to be teachable, especially in the treatment setting, because it's ultimately a sign of how receptive you are to learning new things and your commitment to sobriety." Now, that right there, to me, it's one of those things that you have to do in recovery. Well, for me personally, is having to take inventory of your life. And sometimes I know I find myself that sometimes I do this on the daily basis. You know what I mean? Sometimes I do this throughout my day. I'll take inventory. Okay, well, what did I just do, this morning? Well, did anything that I did this morning, was it something that was positive, something that was that was good for me to move forward in my life and in my sobriety in a positive way? Or did I just spend 6 hours of my day this morning doing nothing, and now there's 6 hours of my life that just went on by and I got nothing out of it? You know what I mean? And I do that on the daily basis, and I do a lot of stuff like that. And even like I had an appointment earlier today. I went to my music therapy group and over at the VA, and on the way back, I took an Uber ride back to the house, and on the way back, I was reading a book, and I put the book down, and I just started looking out in the clouds and just thinking, wow, it just, for some reason, I just decided that, I'm going to take a little bit of this time to just enjoy the sky. You know what I mean? And to relax my mind, because sometimes you have to relax yourself mentally to be prepared for the next teachable action. You know what I mean? And I just found myself that because I had read a little while, and I had just came from music therapy. I'm reading, and then I thought, okay, well, that's a lot of information that I'm putting into my head. You know what I mean? And not to mention all the subconscious thoughts that race through there on the daily. You know what I mean? So I probably already went through about 20,000 different thoughts in my day, plus the things that I was learning and music therapy, and then the things the stuff that I'm intellectually feeding my brain with reading. So I decided to take just a few minutes on the last part of that Uber ride to just check the sky out, and it was enough. And it was probably like 5 minutes, and but it was enough for me to get a little breath work in. You know what I mean? Maybe I took probably a good 8 or 9 deep breaths and exhaled long and held my breath for a few seconds, and then you just did my whole breath work thing that I like to do, and just by looking at the sky and just relaxing my mind and not thinking about anything else, just focused on that and my breath, and that was enough to kind of revamp myself. You know what I mean? So sometimes you might have to do that, and when I read this, it kind of reminded me of that. So I'm going to read a little something else here that I pulled up, and this thing is from, let me see, let's see, here we go. Okay, what did I do here? Alrighty, this thing here that I'm fixing to talk to you about, and this comes from the familyfire.com website, and this thing it's talking about being teachable and developing a teachable spirit. And it says, have a willing heart. And this says, a disciple is someone who is willing to be taught and is eager to learn more. A teachable heart starts with the acknowledgement that we do not know everything. And if we can open our mind, we can learn a lot from the people that God has placed in our lives. It says, Proverbs 13:18 tells us, whoever disregards discipline comes to poverty and shame. But whoever heeds correction is honored. Commit to being a lifelong learner. And, you know, that to me is pretty powerful. It really is, because, you know, this is something, you know, that is coming from a Christian standpoint and from the Bible, obviously. It's saying that something that, you know, if that's your higher power, then, you know, they're talking about God. So whoever your higher power, whoever your God is, it's saying that that's what God's telling you. You know what I mean? How powerful is that? Is that they're giving you something that, you know, your higher power is giving you this insight. You know what I mean? If you're getting insight from somebody, how you know, exciting is that you're getting it from the highest being of creation, right? I think that's awesome. And then it says, learn to listen. You know, learn to listen. And that goes back, just like I said, all I needed was just that last bit of that Uber ride where it was calm. Nobody was saying nothing in the vehicle. I was just breathing and looking at the sky and just coming back into one. You know what I mean? And it's always good to do that. It's a healthy habit, actually. And it says, invest in one another by listening to another's stories. Take time to listen patiently. We miss a lot of the blessings by moving too fast rather than taking the time to listen. Take genuine interest in hearing someone's experience. Choose a posture of attentive listening to understand how others are experiencing things so that you can care for those around you. You know, that to me is amazing. You know, sometimes, I'll give you an example. I sit here and I live with my daughter, and you know, when she gets home from work, sometimes she's having this whole bad day or whatever, and she's venting out. You know what I mean? She's giving me her stories of her day, and, you know, I'm listening to her. You know what I mean? I'm listening to her. And a few times I've caught myself, you know, interrupting her and it's like giving her a little, some feedback. And, you know, she has actually told me, Dad, I just need somebody to listen to me. So now when she does that, you know, because I learned to listen, that now I know when she's venting out her day to me, she just wants somebody to hear her. And I'm just grateful to be able to, you know, be here and being able to just be that listener for her for that few minutes that she needs to vent out and just to express her feelings, right? And I'm just grateful that I'm able to do that, because had I still been in the world of addiction, in the world of darkness, that scenario would have never happened. You know what I mean? And I'm grateful for the fact that my higher power gives me the ability and gave me the second chance to be here in the here and now, to be able to do something like that. I think that's very powerful. And it also says asking loving questions and accept correction and learn from everyone. You know what I mean? And those things are part of being teachable. You know what I mean? Asking loving questions means that you're interacting with somebody, means that you're listening to somebody, and you show that you care, and they in turn there feel that they matter. You know what I mean? Because ultimately, as human beings, we are always people who look for that affirmation. We've always been like that since, you know, the times of since humans were first here. We've always looked for the acknowledgement. We always want the acknowledgement that, okay, you're doing a good job. you matter, those kind of things. And and a lot of people, they get in, that kind of thing bounds them down to the struggle, bounds them down to an addiction, because they're not getting that type of feedback from the people that they want it from, whether it be your parents or your wife or your husband or whatever, right? Your boss, that you're doing all this work and nobody ever acknowledges you. So, you're bitter at work about it all the time. Now you're going to work all, PO'd about things, and you're not putting 100% effort into that work anymore because nobody's acknowledging you. You're just there to cash, to get this check or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's very important to ask loving questions and to be attentive and accept corrections. Because a lot of people don't like to accept corrections. I know that when I was in the addiction, it was always my way or the highway. You know what I mean? Nobody could tell me that I was doing something wrong. I always had to be right. You know what I mean? And, when I accepted the fact that, yes, I do need help. And my way isn't the right way, because I'm still in the addiction. I relapsed, and I've been here for 5 years, and I finally realized that, my way wasn't the right way. And, so you have to accept correction as well. And, learning from people, it says, recognize everyone has something to teach us. God has gifted us with this unique gifts and talents, and we have all walked through different experiences. We can learn from the lives of others. God's kingdom is diverse. And when we engage with those outside of our own culture and experience, our world becomes much richer. And man, that to me is just well said. You know what I mean? Because I tell you this, when I went to my second treatment center and I was, went there for cocaine addiction, and I had been doing cocaine already when I went to that center, probably 14, 15 years of using. And I remember being there and listening to somebody's story. And watching this person express his feelings, watching this person just open up his heart and feeling that energy, feeling that compassion, that love, that this person was genuinely speaking, that he was sharing his story because he wanted it, that he knew that it needed to be said because somebody needed to hear it. And that particular day was the day that I needed to sit there and hear that story. That story that he said that day was for me, because after that day, I got 10 years sobriety because of that gentleman. You know what I mean? Because of his story, I decided that I wanted to do what he was doing because I needed that. And I did. I made it a point to do what he was doing, and I did, and it got me 10 years of sobriety. And it's I'm blessed. I'm blessed for that because it gives me more knowledge. And my point is that the part there that I read, there's that everybody has a story, and that is part of being teachable. You know what I mean? Being teachable is learning from somebody else's experiences. Everybody is being taught something every single day through the actions and thoughts of someone else. You know what I mean? How great is that? You know what I mean? That it's just like this domino effect. Everybody, you're learning from a lot of different people, especially now and today because of social media. You know what I mean? People get onto the internet and they can watch podcasts, they can watch videos, they can watch TikToks, they can watch whatever and be influenced and be taught something. And unfortunately, some things aren't good, but, nonetheless, it's a teachable world. That's the world we live in today. We live in a world of teachability because we live our lives through what's in our environment. Our environment dictates our thought process. It dictates what we take in and what we don't take in and how we live our lives. And if you can live, if this is the way you live your life, and and you were able to pick and choose positive things to go by, then, to me, that's great. You know what I mean? Because we're all here to learn. You know what I mean? Every day is a learning process of something. You know what I mean? And I'm grateful that I'm able to sit here and do a video podcast and discuss things that I learn, discuss things that I read, discuss things that I do throughout my day to help me in my recovery and in my life to keep me moving forward in this positive and spiritual way. And I think that if I could share that and let somebody else take that and learn from it, then it's just like you're passing the baton on passing the baton of beautiful and spiritual practices. You know what I mean? And what a way to live, I think. You know what I mean? It's great. And but yeah, so I guess I just wanted to bring that topic up today because I was read a few things, and then it just kind of was weighing on my heart about about this a few things about being teachable and that sort of thing. And so I'm grateful, and I just want to thank everybody for tuning into this video podcast today. And at this time, if you would please give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, hit that subscribe button, and just know that when you do hit that subscribe button that you're going to be helping out another veteran, another person that's dealing with PTSDs, childhood traumatic experience, anger, sadness, depression, and those sort of neurological brain disorders, because my friends have dealt with all of those things at one point in time in my life. And I know that there is a way out. And it's all about being teachable and about sharing the message. So if you would, please just thank you. I really appreciate you guys watching. And I guess until the next time on When the Smoke Clears, I am the Recovery Plug.